Hello there, sleepy soul. Welcome back to Dreamland Science. Before we begin, if you find this a peaceful place to rest, perhaps you might leave a gentle like or subscribe so that others can find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, settle in. Tonight, we are going to talk about something your brain does every single night, something so quiet, so effortless, that you have probably never thanked it for the work. Every night, while you rest, your brain builds entire worlds from nothing. Landscapes, faces, conversations that never happened, stories that dissolve before morning. And it does all of this not to confuse you, not to test you. It does it to heal you. Dreams are the softest science your body knows. They are your brain's most tender form of self-care, a quiet workshop where emotions are sorted, memories are filed, and the weight of the day is gently set down. You do not need to follow every word tonight. You do not need to remember anything at all. If your eyes grow heavy, if your thoughts begin to drift, that is not a failure. That is exactly what this space is for. So let your body rest. Let your mind slow down, and let your thoughts wander wherever they wish to go. Here are 100 relaxing facts about the soft science of dreaming. Your brain does not shut down when you sleep. This is perhaps one of the most comforting things science has ever discovered. When you close your eyes at night and the world grows quiet, your brain does not go dark. It does not power off like a machine left idle. Instead, it shifts into a different kind of wakefulness, one that is softer, deeper, and in many ways more creative than anything it does during the day. Researchers at Harvard University found that certain regions of the brain actually become more active during sleep than they are during waking hours. The sleeping brain is not resting. It is working, but gently, like a gardener tending to flowers after the visitors have gone home. Imagine a theater after the audience has left. The lights dim, the seats empty, but behind the curtain, the stage crew is already preparing the next show, arranging sets, adjusting lights, rehearsing lines that no one will hear until morning. Perhaps you might notice your jaw softening just a little. Perhaps the muscles around your mouth can release whatever tension they have been holding. There is nothing you need to say right now, nothing you need to hold. And as your jaw settles, your brain is already beginning its quiet evening work, preparing the stage for dreams you may never even remember. You dream between 4 and 6 times every single night. Most people believe they dream only occasionally, perhaps once or twice a week, on nights when something unusual lingers in the mind. But the truth is far more generous than that. Every single night, without exception, your brain creates between 4 and 6 separate dreams. You simply forget most of them. And that forgetting, as we will discover later, is not a mistake. It is part of the design. Research from the University of California, Santa Cruz has shown that dreaming occurs during every REM cycle. And since the average person experiences 4 to 6 REM periods per night, the math is beautifully simple. You are a prolific dreamer. You always have been. Think of it like rainfall on a quiet lake. Each raindrop touches the surface, creates a small ripple, and then dissolves back into stillness. The lake does not need to remember every drop. It simply receives them, one after another, and remains calm. Your dreaming mind works the same way, receiving stories, letting them ripple, and then returning to peace. the average person spends about 2 hours dreaming each night. 2 hours. That may not sound like much, set against the 7 or 8 hours of sleep most people aim for. But consider what it means across a lifetime. If you live to be 80 years old, you will have spent roughly 6 entire years inside your dreams. 6 years of landscapes you built yourself. 6 years of faces, conversations, flights, and quiet wanderings through places that exist only inside you. A study published in the journal Sleep found that total REM time averages between 90 and 120 minutes per night in healthy adults. This time is not continuous, it is spread across the night in waves, growing longer and more vivid as morning approaches. Imagine a river that begins as a narrow stream in the mountains. As it flows, it widens. By the time it reaches the valley, it has become something vast and unhurried. Your dreams follow the same path, beginning as brief flickers and expanding into full, immersive worlds by the final hours of sleep. Perhaps you might notice your shoulders beginning to soften. Perhaps they can drop just a fraction lower than they are right now. There is nothing you need to carry tonight. Your first dream of the night lasts only about 10 minutes. The earliest dreams are brief sketches, really, rather than paintings. They tend to be fragmented, quiet, and closely tied to the events of the day. A face from a conversation, a room you walked through, a feeling that has not yet settled. Sleep researchers have found that the first REM period typically begins about 90 minutes after you fall asleep and lasts between 5 and 15 minutes. It is a gentle introduction, your brain warming up, testing the waters, before the deeper dreams arrive. It is like the first few notes of a lullaby. You do not need to hear the whole melody to feel its effect. Just the beginning is enough to tell your body that rest has arrived. By the final sleep cycle, a single dream can stretch to nearly an hour. As the night unfolds, your dreams grow longer, more detailed, and more emotionally rich. The last REM period, which typically occurs in the early morning hours, can last between 45 and 60 minutes. This is when the most vivid, most narrative, and most memorable dreams take place. Researchers at the Lyon Neuroscience Research Center found that these late-night dreams often contain complex storylines, emotional depth, and creative imagery that the earlier dreams lack. It is as though the brain needs time to warm up before it can produce its most imaginative work. Imagine an artist who begins a painting with light pencil strokes. The first lines are tentative, careful, but as the hours pass and confidence builds, the colors deepen, the details sharpen, and the image becomes something alive. Your dreaming brain follows the same arc, moving from whispers to full symphonies as the night goes on. REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement because your eyes dance beneath closed lids. In 1953, a graduate student named Eugene Asarinsky noticed something remarkable while watching his sleeping son. Beneath the boy's closed eyelids, his eyes were moving, darting back and forth in quick, rhythmic bursts, as if watching something unfold on an invisible screen. This observation, made at the University of Chicago, became one of the most significant discoveries in the history of sleep science. Asarinsky and his mentor, Nathaniel Kleitman, realized that these eye movements corresponded to periods of dreaming. When they woke subjects during REM, the sleepers almost always reported vivid dreams. Perhaps you might notice your forehead relaxing. Perhaps the space between your eyebrows can smooth out. just slightly. There is nothing you need to watch for right now. Your eyes can rest. And beneath those resting lids, later tonight, they may begin their quiet dance following a dream you will never need to remember. During REM, your brain is almost as active as when you are fully awake. This is one of the great paradoxes of sleep. While your body lies still, while your muscles are soft and your breathing is slow, your brain is buzzing with activity. Functional MRI scans show that during REM sleep, the brain's metabolic rate is nearly identical to its waking state. In some regions, particularly the visual cortex, the amygdala, and the hippocampus activity actually exceeds waking levels. Your sleeping brain is not idle. It is deeply, passionately at work. Think of it like the ocean at night. The surface is calm, reflecting moonlight and stillness. But beneath, currents are moving, fish are swimming, and entire ecosystems are alive with silent purpose. The surface tells you nothing about the depth. Your sleeping body is the calm surface. Your dreaming brain is the ocean beneath. Your brain cycles through sleep stages roughly every 90 minutes. Sleep is not a single, unbroken state. It is a rhythm, a gentle oscillation between lighter and deeper stages, rising and falling like the tide. Each complete cycle lasts approximately 90 minutes, and within each cycle, your brain moves through several distinct phases before arriving at REM. The stages include light sleep, where your brain begins to slow down, then deeper sleep, where your body repairs itself, and finally, REM, where dreaming blooms. Researchers at Stanford University's Sleep Medicine Center have mapped these cycles across thousands of sleepers, and the pattern is remarkably consistent. 90 minutes, rise and fall, like breathing, but slower, like waves, but quieter. Perhaps you might notice your hands growing heavy. Perhaps they can uncurl, just a little. There is nothing you need to hold on to right now. The visual cortex lights up during dreams, even though your eyes are closed. When you dream, your brain generates images using the same neural pathways it uses to process real vision. The visual cortex, located at the back of your head, becomes active during REM sleep, painting pictures from memory, imagination, and emotion, rather than from light entering your eyes. Neuroimaging studies from the Max Planck Institute have shown that the patterns of visual cortex activation during dreaming closely resemble those seen during waking perception. Your brain does not distinguish between a landscape you see and a landscape you dream. To the visual cortex, both are equally real. Imagine a projector running in an empty theater. There is no audience, no film reel delivered from outside. The projector generates its own movie from footage stored deep within its own memory banks and plays it on a screen that only you can see. That is what your visual cortex does every night. It becomes both the filmmaker and the audience. Your brain generates its own images, sounds, and stories without any outside input. During waking life, your brain is constantly processing information from the outside world: light, sound, touch, temperature. But during REM sleep, the thalamus largely blocks incoming sensory signals. The brain is cut off from the external world, and yet it continues to produce rich, detailed experiences. It creates faces you recognize, voices you know, and places that feel as real as any room you have ever stood in. All of this is generated internally from memory, emotion, and the brain's remarkable capacity for improvisation. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison describe this as the brain entering offline mode, a state where it processes its own data without interference from new input. Think of a musician who puts on noise-canceling headphones and begins to compose from memory alone. No orchestra, no sheet music, just the music that already lives inside. That is your dreaming brain composing in silence, playing for an audience of one. The prefrontal cortex, the part that judges and plans, goes quiet during dreams. The prefrontal cortex is the region of the brain responsible for logic, critical thinking, and self-awareness. During waking life, it helps you evaluate situations, make decisions, and distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. But during REM sleep, this region significantly reduces its activity. Neuroimaging studies published in the American Journal of Psychiatry have shown that prefrontal deactivation is one of the hallmarks of dreaming. This is why you can fly in a dream and not question it. Why you can have a conversation with someone who passed away years ago and feel no surprise. The inner critic, the voice that says this cannot be real, is resting. Perhaps you might notice your forehead smoothing again. Perhaps the part of your mind that evaluates and judges can take a break tonight. 2. You do not need to decide anything right now. You do not need to figure anything out. Just rest. This is why dreams feel so real. The inner critic is resting. Because the prefrontal cortex is quiet, your dreaming brain accepts everything it experiences as truth. There is no filter, no reality check, no voice whispering, "Wait, this does not make sense." The dream simply is. Dr. J. Allen Hobson, a pioneer in dream research at Harvard Medical School, described this as delusional acceptance, a state where the brain trusts its own internal narrative completely, without question. It is a strangely beautiful form of trust. Your brain creates a world, and then believes in it entirely, like a child telling themselves a bedtime story and becoming so absorbed that the story becomes the whole universe. If only for a little while. There is something tender about that, something worth noticing. Your hippocampus replays the day's events during sleep, but 6 to 7 times faster. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain, is the brain's memory center. During the day, it records experiences, conversations, and sensations. And during sleep, it replays those recordings, but at a dramatically accelerated speed. Research by Dr. Matthew Wilson at MIT showed that neurons in the hippocampus fire in the same sequences during sleep as they did during waking experience, but compressed by a factor of 6 to 7. It is as if the brain is reviewing the day's footage on fast forward, extracting the key moments and discarding the rest. Imagine a librarian who works after the library has closed. The doors are locked, the reading rooms are dark, and in the quiet, the librarian moves through the shelves, reorganizing books, noting which ones were borrowed most, and gently removing those that no one has needed in a long time. Your hippocampus is that librarian, and tonight, it is already preparing to begin its work. Perhaps you might notice your hands growing even heavier against whatever surface they are resting on. Perhaps they can sink just a little deeper. Neurons fire in the same patterns as during waking life, like a gentle echo, This phenomenon, known as hippocampal replay, is one of the most elegant discoveries in modern neuroscience. The same neurons that fired when you learned something new during the day fire again during sleep in the same order, in the same rhythm, like an echo traveling through a quiet valley. A study at University College London found that this replay is not random. The brain selectively replays experiences that are emotionally significant or relevant to survival. It is curating your memories, choosing which echoes to amplify and which to let fade. Think of a stone dropped into a still pond. The splash is the original experience. The ripples that follow expanding outward in perfect circles are the brain's overnight replay. Each ripple carries the essence of the original moment, growing softer with each pass, until the surface is smooth again. The thalamus sends dream images to the cortex, the same way it sends real-world signals. The thalamus is the brain's relay station, a walnut-sized structure that routes sensory information from the eyes, ears, and body to the appropriate regions of the cortex. During waking life, it channels sight, sound, and touch. During REM sleep, it channels dreams. Researchers at the University of Liège in Belgium discovered that the thalamus becomes highly active during REM, sending internally generated signals to the visual cortex with the same urgency and clarity as real-world visual data. This is why dream images can feel so sharp, so vivid, so present. The brain does not have a separate system for dreaming. It uses the same hardware it uses for seeing it, simply changes the source of the signal from external to internal. Imagine a radio that, when the broadcast ends at midnight, begins playing music from its own memory, beautiful, complex music that no station is transmitting. The radio does not know the difference. It simply plays. Your brain consumes as much oxygen during REM as it does when you are awake. Oxygen consumption is a reliable measure of how hard the brain is working. And during REM sleep, cerebral oxygen usage matches or even exceeds waking levels. This was first documented by researchers at the National Institutes of Health using positron emission tomography (PET) scans, which track blood flow and metabolic activity in real time. Your sleeping brain is not conserving energy. It is spending it, investing in the work of dreaming, processing, and healing. Think of a forge that never fully cools. The fire dims when the blacksmith steps away, but the coals remain hot, ready to blaze again at the slightest breath. Your brain is that forge, always warm, always working, even when the conscious mind has stepped out of the room. Perhaps you might notice your shoulders settling even deeper. Perhaps whatever surface is supporting you can take a little more of your weight. You are allowed to be heavy tonight. The pons, a small structure at the base of your brain, is the dream generator. The pons is part of the brainstem, located where the brain meets the spinal cord. It is small, roughly the size of a walnut, but its role in dreaming is enormous. The pons generates the signals that initiate REM sleep, triggering the cascade of neural events that produce dreams. Dr. Michel Jouvet, a French neuroscientist, discovered in the 1960s that damage to the pons eliminates REM sleep entirely. Without the pons, the brain cannot dream. He called REM sleep paradoxical sleep because the brain appears so active while the body remains so still. Imagine a small lighthouse on a rocky shore. It is modest in size, easy to overlook, but without its light, ships would lose their way in the dark. The pons is your brain's lighthouse, small, steady, and essential for guiding you into the world of dreams each night. Newborn babies spend about 8 hours a day in REM sleep. Babies sleep more than any other stage of human life, and a remarkably large portion of that sleep is REM. A newborn spends roughly 50% of their total sleep time in REM, compared to about 20 to 25% for adults. Developmental neuroscientists believe this is because REM sleep plays a critical role in brain development. During those long hours of dreaming, the baby's brain is building neural connections, strengthening pathways, and constructing the architecture it will use for the rest of its life. Imagine a house being built at night, while the neighborhood sleeps. Each beam placed, each wall raised, each window framed, all happening in the quiet dark. By morning, the house is a little more complete, a little more ready for the life it will hold. A baby's brain is that house, and REM sleep is the tireless construction crew. As you age, your REM periods gradually become shorter. The proportion of sleep spent in REM decreases slowly across the lifespan. Newborns spend about 8 hours in REM. By adulthood, that number has dropped to roughly 90 to 120 minutes. In older adults, REM time may shrink further. Research published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews suggests that this decline reflects the brain's changing needs, not a loss, but a shift. The intensive construction of childhood gives way to the quieter maintenance of adulthood. Perhaps you might notice your jaw softening again. Perhaps the muscles at the hinge of your jaw can release just a fraction more. There is nothing you need to chew on tonight, no thoughts, no worries, no plans, just softness. Even in the womb, babies likely experience something close to dreaming. Ultrasound studies have detected rapid eye movements in fetuses as early as 23 weeks of gestation. While we cannot know for certain what a fetus experiences during these REM-like states, the presence of the neural activity suggests that something resembling dreaming may begin long before birth. Dr. Rothwag and colleagues proposed in their landmark 1966 paper that fetal REM sleep provides the developing brain with internal stimulation, a kind of neural rehearsal that prepares the visual and emotional systems for the world they have not yet seen. Imagine a musician tuning an instrument in a dark room, preparing for a concert that has not yet begun. The notes are soft, uncertain, but each one brings the instrument closer to readiness. A fetus in REM sleep may be doing something similar, tuning the brain for a life it is about to enter. Your brain produces theta waves during REM, the same waves found in deep meditation. Theta waves oscillate at a frequency of 4 to 8 Hz, a slow, rhythmic pattern associated with deep relaxation, creativity, and the boundary between waking and sleeping. During REM sleep, theta waves dominate the hippocampus, creating a neural rhythm that facilitates memory, consolidation, and emotional processing. Researchers at the University of Zurich found that the theta rhythm during REM closely resembles the theta activity seen in experienced meditators during deep practice. In both states, the brain enters a mode of quiet, focused processing, alert but unhurried. Think of ocean waves lapping against a sandy shore at dusk. Each wave arrives at exactly the same interval, consistent, predictable, hypnotic. Theta waves are the ocean rhythm of your sleeping brain, steady, soothing, and ancient. Perhaps you might notice your forehead softening once more. Perhaps the space behind your eyes can relax, as if the thoughts stored there have been given permission to dissolve. PGO waves ripple from the brainstem to the visual cortex just before a dream begins. Just before REM sleep begins, a distinctive pattern of neural activity sweeps through the brain. These are called PGO waves, named for the three brain regions they travel through the pons: the lateral geniculate nucleus and the occipital cortex. These waves were first identified by Dr. Michel Jouvet in cats during the 1960s, and subsequent research has confirmed their presence in humans. They are, in essence, the brain's way of saying a dream is about to begin. Imagine the quiet moment in a theater just before the curtain rises. The lights dim. The audience hushes. A single note from the orchestra signals that the story is about to start. PGO waves are that note, a gentle announcement that the dreaming brain is ready to perform. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, is highly active during dreams. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure deep in the temporal lobe, responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear, anxiety, and emotional memory. During REM sleep, the amygdala shows heightened activity, which helps explain why dreams are so often emotionally charged. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, led by Dr. Matthew Walker, found that the amygdala's activity during REM is closely linked to the emotional content of dreams. The more active the amygdala, the more emotionally vivid the dream. But here is the comforting part. During REM, the amygdala fires without the usual flood of stress chemicals. It processes emotion in a safe environment, like rehearsing a difficult conversation in an empty room, where there is no audience and no consequence. Your brain is brave enough to feel everything but wise enough to do it gently. Your brain temperature rises slightly during REM, as if warming up for creative work. During most stages of sleep, brain temperature decreases as metabolic activity slows. But during REM sleep, brain temperature rises, returning to near waking levels. This thermal increase reflects the intense neural processing taking place. Researchers at the University of Loughborough in England measured these temperature fluctuations and found that the rise coincides precisely with the onset of REM. The brain is, quite literally, warming up, preparing itself for the creative, emotional, and cognitive work of dreaming. Perhaps you might notice a gentle warmth beginning to settle in your body. Perhaps your hands are growing warm, or your chest feels soft and full. This is your body beginning to relax into the kind of rest where healing happens. Imagine a kettle beginning to hum on a stove not yet boiling, just gently warming, filling the kitchen with a quiet promise that something comforting is on its way. Dreams are built from fragments of memory, sensation, and emotion, like a mosaic made in the dark. No dream is entirely invented. Every image, every face, every sensation in a dream is drawn from something you have experienced, though the brain may combine, distort, and rearrange these elements in ways that feel entirely new. Dr. Tor Nielsen at the University of Montreal has proposed the dream lag effect, the finding that experiences from 1 to 7 days ago are most likely to appear in dreams, as the brain continues to process recent events during sleep. Think of a mosaic artist working in a dimly lit studio. The tiles are fragments of colored glass, pieces of sky, pieces of forest, pieces of faces half remembered. In the dark, the artist arranges them by feel, guided not by a blueprint but by intuition. The result is something new, a pattern that never existed before, made entirely from pieces of what already was. Your dreaming brain is that artist, and the mosaic it creates tonight will be unlike any it has ever made before. Perhaps you might notice your whole body beginning to settle, sinking just a little deeper into whatever holds you. The first cluster of facts is drawing to a close, and the architecture of your dreams is becoming clearer. You do not need to hold on to any of this. It is already inside you, the way a river is inside the landscape it has carved. Norepinephrine, a key stress chemical, drops to nearly zero during REM sleep. Of all the things that happen inside your brain while you dream, this may be the most quietly extraordinary. Norepinephrine is one of the brain's primary stress signals. During the day, it keeps you alert, sharpens your focus, and prepares your body to respond to threats. It is the chemical behind the racing heart, the tight chest, the feeling that something needs your attention right now. But during REM sleep, norepinephrine levels plummet to nearly undetectable levels. This was first measured by researchers at the National Institute of Mental Health, who found that the locus coeruleus, the brain's main source of norepinephrine, goes almost completely silent during REM. It is the only time in the entire 24-hour cycle when this happens. The only window when your brain can process difficult experiences without the chemical weight of stress. Imagine a room where you can revisit any memory, even a painful one, but the room has no sharp edges, no harsh lights, no cold air. Everything is soft. Everything is safe. That is what REM sleep creates for your brain each night. Perhaps you might notice your feet beginning to relax. Perhaps the soles of your feet can soften against whatever surface they are touching. There is nowhere you need to walk tonight. Nowhere you need to go. This means your brain replays emotional memories in a space where stress cannot reach. This is the heart of what makes dreaming so remarkable. Your brain does not avoid difficult memories during sleep. It does not push them aside or lock them away. Instead, it does something far more courageous. It revisits them. But it revisits them in a neurochemical environment that is fundamentally different from waking life. Without norepinephrine, the emotional charge of a memory can be processed without triggering the body's stress response. The memory remains, but the sting is softened. Dr. Matthew Walker at the University of California, Berkeley, describes this as overnight therapy. His research has shown that REM sleep allows the brain to separate the content of a memory from the emotion attached to it, keeping the story but releasing the pain. Think of a letter written in ink that has been left in gentle rain. The words remain visible, but the sharp edges have blurred. The message is still there, but it no longer cuts. That is what REM sleep does to your most difficult memories. It softens them, one night at a time. Researchers call REM sleep overnight therapy. It processes the feelings you carried all day. The phrase overnight therapy was coined by Dr. Walker's research team, and it captures something profound about what happens during dreaming. Every emotion you experience during the day, every frustration, every moment of sadness, every flash of worry is carried into sleep like luggage brought to a quiet hotel room. And during REM, the brain unpacks that luggage. It examines each item, decides what to keep and what to release, and repacks what remains in a lighter, more manageable form. A study published in the journal Current Biology found that participants who experienced a full night of REM sleep showed significantly reduced emotional reactivity to disturbing images the following day, compared to those whose REM was disrupted. The dreaming brain had done its therapeutic work. Perhaps you might notice your chest softening. Perhaps the space around your heart can expand just slightly, as if making room for the quiet work that sleep is about to do. A study found that missing REM sleep increases emotional reactivity by 60% the next day. When REM sleep is disrupted or shortened, the consequences are measurable and immediate. Dr. Walker's laboratory at Berkeley conducted a study in which participants were either allowed a full night of sleep or were selectively deprived of REM. The next day, those who missed REM showed a 60% increase in amygdala reactivity, meaning their emotional responses to neutral and mildly negative stimuli were dramatically amplified. The world, quite literally, feels more threatening after a night without dreams. This finding has been replicated across multiple laboratories and populations. It suggests that REM sleep is not a luxury, it is an emotional necessity. Without it, the brain cannot properly calibrate its emotional responses, and the boundary between mild irritation and overwhelming distress becomes dangerously thin. Think of a musical instrument that has not been tuned. Each note it plays is slightly off, not enough to be unrecognizable, but enough to feel wrong, uncomfortable, grating. REM sleep is the tuning that happens each night, bringing your emotional instrument back to its natural pitch. During dreams, the amygdala fires, but without the usual flood of stress hormones. This is one of the most elegant designs in all of neuroscience. The amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, remains highly active during REM sleep. It processes fear, sadness, anxiety, and emotional memory with the same intensity as it does during the day. But because norepinephrine is absent, the amygdala fires in a kind of safe mode. It can feel the emotion without triggering the body's full stress cascade. No racing heart, no shallow breathing, no cortisol surge. Researchers at the University of Geneva confirmed this using functional neuroimaging, showing that REM sleep creates a unique neurochemical state where emotional processing occurs without physiological stress. Imagine watching a thunderstorm from inside a warm, dry room. You can see the lightning, hear the thunder, feel the power of the storm, but you are completely protected. The glass between you and the storm is REM sleep. It lets you witness without being harmed. Perhaps you might notice your neck releasing some of its tension. Perhaps the muscles along the sides of your neck can soften, allowing your head to feel a little heavier on the pillow. This is how your brain keeps the memory, but releases the pain. The separation of emotional charge from memory content is perhaps the most therapeutic function of dreaming. After sufficient REM processing, you can remember a difficult event without being overwhelmed by the feelings it originally produced. Dr. Rosalind Cartwright, a pioneer in dream psychology at Rush University Medical Center, studied this process in people going through divorce. She found that those who dreamed about their loss, incorporating it into their dream narratives, showed the fastest emotional recovery. Those who did not dream about it, or whose REM was disrupted, took significantly longer to heal. The memory does not disappear. It remains part of your story. But the sharp edges are worn smooth by the gentle repetition of overnight processing, like a piece of sea glass, tumbled by waves until it becomes something you can hold without flinching. People who dream about a stressful event often feel calmer about it the following day. This is not just a feeling, it is a measurable shift in brain activity. Studies at the Sleep and Neuroimaging Laboratory at Berkeley have shown that dreaming about a stressful experience leads to reduced amygdala activation when the person encounters reminders of that experience the next day. The dream does not erase the event. It processes it. It takes the raw, undigested emotion and transforms it into something the brain can integrate, something that no longer triggers alarm. Think of a stone that has fallen into a river. At first, it is rough, angular, sharp, but over time, the water smooths its surface, rounds its edges, and settles it gently into the riverbed. Each night of dreaming is a little more water flowing over the stone. Perhaps you might notice your fingers uncurling. Perhaps they can rest open against the sheets or against your chest. There is nothing you need to grip tonight. REM sleep helps the brain distinguish between what is threatening and what is safe. One of the most remarkable functions of dreaming is threat calibration, the brain's ability to recalibrate its sense of danger. During REM sleep, the brain reviews the day's emotional experiences and adjusts its threat assessment, determining which situations genuinely require alarm and which were false positives. Research from the University of Zurich found that participants who had a full night of REM sleep were better able to distinguish between threatening and non-threatening facial expressions the next day. Their brains had recalibrated overnight, fine-tuning the line between caution and calm. Without this nightly recalibration, the brain would gradually become more reactive, more anxious, more prone to seeing threats where none exist. REM sleep prevents this drift. Imagine a smoke detector that is slightly too sensitive going off whenever you toast bread or boil water. Each night, REM sleep adjusts the sensitivity, making sure the alarm only sounds when there is real smoke. Dreaming about a difficult conversation can help your brain rehearse a calmer response. Dreams are not just replays, they are rehearsals. Research by Dr. Antti Revonsuo at the University of Turku has shown that the brain uses dreaming to simulate social scenarios, allowing you to practice responses in a safe, consequence-free environment. This is particularly evident in dreams about interpersonal conflict. People who dream about a difficult conversation often report feeling more prepared, more measured, and less emotionally reactive when they encounter similar situations in waking life. The brain is not replaying the conversation exactly as it happened. It is improvising, testing different responses, exploring different outcomes, searching for the version that feels safest and most resolved. Think of an actor rehearsing a scene in an empty theater. There is no audience, no pressure, no judgment. Each run-through brings a little more confidence, a little more grace. Your dreaming brain is that actor rehearsing the scenes of your life while the theater is dark. Your brain uses dreams to connect unrelated memories, finding hidden patterns. During waking life, the brain tends to organize information in logical categories, work memories in one folder, family memories in another, sensory experiences in a third. But during REM sleep, these boundaries dissolve. Research at Harvard Medical School by Dr. System Robert Stickgold has shown that the dreaming brain makes associative connections between memories that the waking brain would never link. A childhood birthday might merge with a work presentation. A song you heard yesterday might blend with a face from 10 years ago. These seemingly random connections are not noise. They are the brain searching for hidden patterns, relationships between experiences that might be useful for future problem-solving or emotional understanding. Imagine a weaver working with threads of different colors, pulling strands from different spools and intertwining them in unexpected combinations. The result is a tapestry that neither spool could have produced alone. Your dreaming brain is that weaver creating meaning from the threads of separate days. Perhaps you might notice your chest rising and falling more slowly. Perhaps your breath can find its own rhythm, unhurried, unforced, like the breathing of someone who has been asleep for hours. The phrase "sleep on it" has real scientific weight solutions often emerge after REM. This piece of folk wisdom turns out to be grounded in solid neuroscience. Multiple studies have demonstrated that REM sleep enhances problem-solving ability, particularly for problems that require creative or non-obvious solutions. A landmark study at the University of Lübeck in Germany presented participants with a complex number puzzle. Those who slept between attempts were 2.5 times more likely to discover the hidden shortcut than those who stayed awake. And the discovery almost always occurred after a period of REM sleep. The waking brain works linearly, step by step, rule by rule. But the dreaming brain works associatively, jumping between ideas, testing improbable combinations, exploring paths that logic would reject. Sometimes, the answer to a problem is not found by thinking harder, but by thinking differently. And dreaming is the brain's most different way of thinking. Paul McCartney heard the melody of Yesterday in a dream and wrote it down upon waking. One of the most beloved songs in the history of popular music arrived not through hours of deliberate composition, but through a dream. Paul McCartney has described waking one morning with a complete melody in his head, so vivid, so fully formed, that he initially assumed it must be an existing song he had heard somewhere. He sat at a piano and played it through, note by note, trying to identify where it came from. When he could not find a match, he realized it was entirely new, a gift from his dreaming brain. The song became Yesterday, which has since been covered more than 2,000 times by other artists. It began not in a recording studio, but in the quiet architecture of a dream. Your dreaming brain may not write hit songs every night, but it is always creating, always combining, always experimenting, always offering you something that did not exist before you closed your eyes. The chemist Kekulé dreamed of a snake biting its own tail and realized the benzene ring in 1865. The German chemist August Kekulé had been struggling for months to determine the molecular structure of benzene. One evening, while dozing by the fire, he dreamed of atoms dancing in chains. Then one of the chains curled around and seized its own tail, forming a spinning ring. Kekulé woke with a start and immediately recognized the solution. Benzene was not a chain, it was a ring, a closed hexagonal loop of carbon atoms. This insight transformed organic chemistry and opened the door to an entire branch of molecular science. Perhaps you might notice your neck softening further. Perhaps the weight of your head can settle more completely into whatever supports it. There is no problem you need to solve tonight. Your dreaming brain will attend to what it can, quietly, without being asked. Mendeleev arranged the periodic table after seeing it clearly in a dream. Dmitri Mendeleev, the Russian chemist, had been working for years to organize the known chemical elements into a coherent system. He had tried countless arrangements, none of which fully satisfied the patterns he sensed but could not articulate. Then, one night in 1869, after falling asleep at his desk, he dreamed of a table in which all the elements fell into their correct places. He later wrote, "I saw in a dream a table where all the elements fell into place as required." Awakening. I immediately wrote it down on a piece of paper. The periodic table, one of the foundational documents of modern science, was organized not by conscious effort alone, but by the quiet, associative genius of a dreaming mind. Imagine a puzzle that you have been working on for hours. The pieces are scattered across the table, and none of them seem to fit. Then you step away, close your eyes, and when you return, the picture is suddenly clear. Your dreaming brain had been working on it all along. Dreams with emotional content reduce next-day anxiety more than dreamless sleep. Not all sleep is created equal when it comes to emotional healing. Research published in the Journal of Neuroscience has shown that it is specifically dreams with emotional content, dreams that engage the amygdala and process feelings that provide the greatest reduction in next-day anxiety. Dreamless sleep restores the body, but dreaming sleep restores the heart. Participants in these studies who reported emotionally vivid dreams showed lower cortisol levels the following morning and demonstrated calmer responses to emotional stimuli throughout the day. The dreams did not need to be pleasant, they simply needed to engage with emotion. Think of a garden after a night of gentle rain. The soil is soft, the leaves are washed clean, and the air smells of earth and renewal. Dreamless sleep is dry air, but emotional dreaming is rain quiet, thorough, and deeply nourishing. Perhaps you might notice your chest expanding more easily with each breath. Perhaps there is a little more space inside you than there was a few minutes ago. Your brain sorts memories during sleep like a librarian working after closing time. This metaphor appears throughout sleep science because it captures the process so perfectly. During the day, the brain accumulates experiences rapidly: conversations, images, sensations, emotions. By nightfall, the hippocampus is full of unprocessed material. During sleep, the brain begins the slow, methodical work of sorting. Which memories are meaningful, which are redundant, which need to be stored in long-term archives, and which can be safely discarded. Dr. Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin-Madison has proposed the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, which suggests that sleep is necessary for pruning the day's neural connections, keeping the strong ones and allowing the weak ones to fade. This pruning is what makes room for new learning the following day. Imagine a garden at the end of autumn. Some plants have grown tall and strong. Others have withered. The gardener moves through the rows, trimming what is no longer needed and protecting what will bloom again in spring. Your sleeping brain is that gardener, patient, deliberate, and always working in service of what comes next. Memories move from the hippocampus to the neocortex, from short-term to long-term storage. The journey of a memory during sleep is one of the most beautiful processes in neuroscience. Fresh memories begin in the hippocampus, a temporary holding area. But the hippocampus has limited capacity, and if memories stayed there permanently, it would quickly overflow. During sleep, particularly during the slow wave sleep that precedes REM, memories are gradually transferred to the neocortex, the brain's vast, long-term storage. This transfer is mediated by coordinated neural rhythms, slow oscillations, sleep spindles, and hippocampal ripples working together in a carefully choreographed sequence. Researchers at the University of Tübingen in Germany have mapped this transfer process using simultaneous recordings from multiple brain regions. They describe it as a dialogue between the hippocampus and the neocortex, a conversation conducted in the language of neural rhythms. Perhaps you might notice your fingers growing heavier. Perhaps they can rest without any effort, without any grip, without any plan for what they might do next. The brain decides which memories to keep and which to gently release. Not every memory survives the night. And this is not a failure of the system, it is its purpose. The brain is not a perfect recorder. It is a curator, choosing which experiences deserve space in long-term storage and which can be quietly dissolved. Research by Dr. Jessica Payne at the University of Notre Dame has shown that the brain preferentially consolidates memories with emotional significance. A conversation that moved you deeply is more likely to survive than the details of what you ate for lunch. The brain keeps what matters and releases what does not. Think of a river flowing through a landscape. It carries everything: leaves, soil, small stones, petals from upstream. But as it flows, it deposits the heavier elements along the banks and carries the lighter ones onward, eventually releasing them into the sea. Your sleeping brain is that river carrying the day's experiences and depositing the meaningful ones where they will remain. Sleep spindles, bursts of brain activity, help lock new memories into place. Sleep spindles are brief, powerful bursts of neural oscillation that occur during stage 2 of non-REM sleep. They last only about 1 to 2 seconds each, but they occur hundreds of times per night, and they play a critical role in memory consolidation. Research at the Montreal Neurological Institute has shown that the number of sleep spindles a person produces correlates directly with their ability to retain new information. More spindles, more learning. The spindles act as neural stamps, marking specific memories for long-term storage. Imagine a librarian placing small gold bookmarks in the pages of the most valuable volumes, marking them so they will never be misplaced. Sleep spindles are those bookmarks, placed with precision by a brain that knows exactly which memories deserve to be preserved. Perhaps you might notice your feet growing warm and heavy. Perhaps the tension in your ankles can dissolve, allowing your feet to rest completely. Your dreaming brain replays physical skills too. Musicians improve after sleeping. Memory consolidation during sleep is not limited to facts and events. Physical skills, motor memories, are also strengthened during the night. A pianist who practices a difficult passage before bed will play it better the next morning, even without additional practice. Dr. Matthew Walker's laboratory demonstrated this with a finger-tapping task. Participants who practiced the task and then slept showed a 20 to 30% improvement in speed and accuracy, compared to those who practiced but stayed awake for the same interval. The improvement occurred without any additional conscious rehearsal. The brain, it seems, continues to practice while you sleep, running through the motor sequences in the quiet of the night, smoothing out the rough passages, strengthening the neural pathways that guide your hands. Think of a dancer who performs a routine on stage, then rests. In dreams, the body may be still, but the neural choreography continues step by step, turn by turn, growing more fluid with each silent rehearsal. Students who nap after studying perform better on tests than those who stay awake. The relationship between sleep and learning has been demonstrated in dozens of studies across universities worldwide. One of the most compelling was conducted at Harvard, where students who took a 90-minute nap after learning new material performed significantly better on subsequent tests than those who stayed awake and studied further. The nap group did not study more. They simply slept. And in that sleep, their brains consolidated the new information, strengthened the neural connections, and prepared the material for long-term retrieval. Dr. Sarah Mednick at the University of California, Irvine, has shown that naps containing REM sleep are particularly effective for creative problem-solving and emotional memory integration. Perhaps you might notice your breathing slowing even further. Perhaps each exhale lasts a little longer than the last. There is no pace you need to keep. Your breath can set its own tempo. Emotional dreams tend to occur more in the second half of the night. The architecture of sleep changes across the night. In the first half, deep, slow-wave sleep dominates the time for physical restoration and initial memory consolidation. In the second half, REM periods grow longer and more intense, and it is here that the most emotionally vivid dreams take place. Research at the Central Institute of Mental Health in Mannheim, Germany, has shown that dreams in the early morning hours contain more emotional content, more complex narratives, and more references to personal concerns than dreams earlier in the night. This is why the dreams you remember upon waking tend to be the most vivid. They are the products of your longest, deepest REM periods. Imagine a symphony that begins with quiet strings, gentle, simple, foundational. As the movements progress, the orchestra grows fuller, the emotions deepen, and the finale swells with everything the composer has been building toward. Your night of sleep follows the same structure, saving its most powerful emotional work for the final act. Your brain prioritizes emotionally significant memories for overnight processing. Not all memories receive equal treatment during sleep. The brain uses emotional significance as a primary sorting criterion, directing more processing resources toward experiences that carried emotional weight, whether positive or negative. Dr. Jessica Payne's research has shown that after a night of sleep, participants remember emotionally charged images with significantly greater accuracy than neutral ones. The brain does not treat all inputs equally. It triages, attending first to what the heart cares about most. Think of a post office sorting room at the end of a long day. Thousands of letters arrive, but some are marked urgent, and those are processed first. Your brain marks emotionally significant experiences as urgent, ensuring they receive the overnight attention they need. Perhaps you might notice your neck releasing even more. Perhaps the muscles along the back of your neck can soften, allowing your head to feel as though it is floating on something impossibly soft. Even brief naps with REM can provide measurable emotional relief. You do not need a full 8 hours for the healing power of dreams to begin. Research has shown that naps as short as 60 to 90 minutes, long enough to include a REM period, can provide significant emotional benefits. A study at the University of California, Berkeley found that a nap containing REM sleep reduced participants' emotional reactivity to previously viewed negative images. The nap did not erase the negative feelings, it modulated them, bringing them down from overwhelming to manageable. This suggests that the brain's emotional processing system can begin its work quickly. Even in small windows of sleep, a brief dream may be enough to take the edge off a difficult morning. Think of a cup of warm tea on a cold afternoon. It does not change the weather. It does not solve the day's problems. But it offers a moment of comfort that makes everything else a little more bearable. A brief nap with REM is that cup of tea for your emotional brain. Dreaming is your brain's way of filing the day away gently, without rushing. As we reach the midpoint of these 100 facts, perhaps it is worth pausing to notice what we have learned so far. Your brain does not abandon you when you sleep. It does not leave your emotions unattended or your memories unsorted. It works through the night quietly, faithfully, without complaint, processing everything you carried through the day. It replays your memories in a room where stress cannot enter. It separates pain from meaning. It practices safety. It searches for patterns. It rehearses calmer versions of difficult moments. And it does all of this without you ever needing to ask. Dreaming is not an accident of biology. It is a gift. Perhaps you might notice your whole body growing heavier, softer, more settled. Perhaps the boundary between listening and drifting is beginning to blur. That is perfectly fine. That is exactly where you were meant to be. The second cluster is drawing to a close, and somewhere, in a part of your brain you cannot see, the filing has already begun. The 5 most common dream themes across all cultures are falling, flying, being chased, searching, and being late. No matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter what you believe, your dreams share a common vocabulary with every other sleeping mind on the planet. Researchers who have catalogued dream content across dozens of cultures have found the same themes appearing again and again: the sensation of falling, the freedom of flight, the urgency of being chased, the restlessness of searching, and the anxiety of being late. Dr. Calvin Hall, who collected more than 50,000 dream reports over several decades at Case Western Reserve University, was among the first to document this remarkable consistency. His findings have since been confirmed by researchers in Japan, Brazil, India, Germany, and Nigeria. Imagine standing on a hilltop at night and looking up at the stars. The constellations you see are the same ones that people on the other side of the world are seeing right now, the same patterns, the same lights, the same ancient shapes. Dream themes are like constellations shared by all of humanity, visible from every corner of the earth. Perhaps you might notice your stomach softening. Perhaps the muscles across your abdomen can release, allowing your belly to rise and fall freely with each breath. There is nothing you need to hold in tonight. People in the United States, Japan, India, and Brazil report remarkably similar dream themes. The cross-cultural consistency of dream content is one of the most striking findings in dream research. A study published in the journal Consciousness and Cognition compared dream reports from participants in 12 different countries and found that the core emotional themes, anxiety, social interaction, physical danger, and pursuit, appeared with nearly identical frequency across all populations. Cultural differences do appear in the details. People in agricultural communities dream more about weather and animals. Urban dwellers dream more about technology and social conflict. But the underlying emotional architecture, the feelings of vulnerability, freedom, connection, and loss remains remarkably constant. This suggests that dreaming is not a cultural product. It is a biological one, wired into the human brain at a level deeper than language, deeper than tradition, deeper than geography. Think of a melody that every culture has its own version of a lullaby. Perhaps The words are different. The instruments are different. But the rhythm and the intent are the same: comfort, safety, rest. Dreams are humanity's universal lullaby. About 80% of dreams contain at least one person you know. Dreams are populated places. Research by Dr. G. William Domhoff at the University of California, Santa Cruz, has shown that the vast majority of dreams feature at least one familiar character, a family member, a friend, a colleague, a neighbor. Complete strangers appear in dreams far less often than most people assume. This makes sense when you consider that dreams are built from memory. The faces your brain has stored most deeply, the ones attached to emotion, to history, to daily life, are the ones most likely to appear on the dream stage. Perhaps you might notice your eyelids growing heavier. Perhaps they can rest more completely, without the effort of keeping them closed. They are simply closed naturally, effortlessly, like curtains drawn at the end of a long day. And behind those curtains, when dreams come, the cast will be familiar. You will not dream among strangers. You will dream among the people your brain has chosen to remember. Strangers in your dreams often have composite faces, blends of people you have met. When unfamiliar faces do appear in dreams, they are rarely truly unknown. Research using dream journaling and facial recognition analysis has shown that the strangers in our dreams are often composites constructed by the brain from fragments of real faces encountered during waking life. A cashier you barely noticed, a person who sat across from you on a train, a face glimpsed in a photograph. The brain stores these briefly, and during dreaming, it may combine features from several sources to create a face that feels new, but is actually a mosaic of the familiar. Dr. Mark Blagrove at Swansea University has studied this phenomenon extensively, finding that the brain's dreaming face generator draws from a vast library of stored impressions, assembling new faces the way a collage artist assembles a portrait from magazine clippings. Imagine a painter who uses only colors mixed from pigments already on the palette. No new paint is added. Yet the resulting portrait is something that has never existed before, familiar in its elements, but entirely original in its combination. Children tend to dream about animals more than adults do, an echo of our evolutionary past. Children's dreams are populated with creatures: dogs, cats, bears, snakes, and insects appear far more frequently in the dreams of young children than in those of adults. Dr. David Folks, who conducted the first longitudinal study of children's dreams at the University of Wyoming, found that animals were the dominant characters in the dreams of children under 7. Evolutionary psychologists suggest this reflects a deep ancestral pattern. For most of human history, animals were among the most significant threats and companions in daily life. The dreaming brain of a child, still building its threat simulation systems, defaults to the categories that mattered most across millennia of evolution. Think of an old map, the kind drawn before satellites, before precise measurements. The edges are decorated with sea monsters and wild beasts, because those were the unknowns that occupied the imagination. A child's dreamscape is like that old map filled with creatures, both wondrous and uncertain. As the brain charts its understanding of the world, perhaps you might notice your arms growing heavy against your sides. Perhaps they can sink a little deeper, as if the surface beneath you is slowly accepting more of your weight. Adults dream more about social situations, conversations, gatherings, relationships. As we grow older, the animals of childhood dreams gradually give way to the people and social dynamics of adult life. Research by Dr. Michael Schredel at the Central Institute of Mental Health in Mannheim has shown that adults' dreams are dominated by interpersonal themes, conversations, conflicts, collaborations, and emotional exchanges. This shift reflects the changing landscape of what matters most to the brain. For children, the world is full of physical unknowns. For adults, the deepest uncertainties are social relationships, belonging, status, and emotional connection. Your dreaming brain adapts to your life stage. It rehearses the challenges most relevant to your current world, preparing you not for predators in the forest, but for conversations in the morning. Only about 35% of dreams are truly bizarre. Most reflect ordinary life. Popular culture portrays dreams as surreal. Impossible landscapes, melting clocks, and flying elephants. But the scientific reality is far more mundane. Studies of dream content have consistently found that the majority of dreams closely mirror waking life realistic settings. Familiar people, everyday activities. Dr. Domhoff's analysis of thousands of dream reports found that about 65% of dream content could be classified as continuous with waking life recognizable settings, plausible events, and familiar emotions. The truly bizarre elements: impossible physics, shape-shifting characters, impossible locations are the minority. This is strangely comforting. Your dreaming brain is not trying to confuse you. It is working through the real material of your real life gently, privately, in its own quiet way. Think of a journal written in the dark. Most of the entries are ordinary: what happened, who was there, how it felt. Occasionally, the pen wanders into fantasy, but the heart of the journal is truth. Anxiety is the most commonly reported emotion in dreams, followed by joy, then surprise. If you have ever woken from a dream feeling uneasy but unable to say why, you are not alone. Anxiety is the single most frequently reported emotional tone in dream research, appearing in roughly 1/3 of all recorded dreams. But this is not cause for concern. Researchers believe that the prevalence of anxiety in dreams reflects the brain's ongoing work of threat calibration. By processing low-level anxieties during sleep, the brain prevents them from accumulating and becoming overwhelming during the day. Joy is the second most common dream emotion, and surprise is third. Together, these three emotions account for the majority of dream experiences, a blend of gentle worry, quiet happiness, and the mild startlement of the unexpected. Perhaps you might notice your lower back releasing some of its tension. Perhaps the muscles along your spine can soften, allowing your back to settle more completely against whatever supports it. Your dreams tonight may carry a little anxiety, a little joy, a little surprise, and all of it is your brain's way of caring for you. People who are blind from birth dream in sound, touch, and smell, not vision. This is one of the most beautiful findings in all of dream science. People who have never experienced sight do not dream in images. Instead, their dreams are rich tapestries of sound, texture, temperature, taste, and spatial awareness. A study at the Danish Center for Sleep Medicine found that congenitally blind individuals reported dreams that were just as vivid, just as emotionally complex. and just as meaningful as those of sighted dreamers, but composed entirely of non-visual sensory experiences. The brain does not need eyes to build a world. It simply uses whatever sensory language it knows best. For those who have always navigated the world through sound and touch, dreams speak in those same languages, whispering instead of painting, sculpting instead of projecting. Imagine a room filled with music that you can feel vibrations rising through the floor, melodies brushing against your skin, harmonies wrapping around you like a blanket. That is what a dream might feel like for someone who has never seen a world built entirely from sensation. Those who lose sight later in life continue to dream in images for years afterward. For people who had vision and later lost it, the brain continues to generate visual dreams for an extended period, sometimes decades. The visual cortex retains its ability to produce images from stored memories. And during REM sleep, it continues to do so. Research published in the journal Sleep Medicine found that the duration of visual dreaming after vision loss correlates roughly with the number of years the person had sight. Those who were sighted for 20 years may continue to see in their dreams for 15 or more years after losing vision. Gradually, over time, the visual dreams fade as the brain's visual memories weaken. The dreams do not disappear, they transform, shifting toward the other senses, becoming richer in sound and texture as the images slowly dissolve. Think of a photograph left in sunlight. Over years, the colors fade slowly, gently, but the image remains recognizable for a long time before it finally softens into whiteness. The brain's visual dream library fades the same way gradually, gracefully, with no rush. Animals dream too. Rats replay the routes of mazes they ran during the day. In 1994, researchers Matthew Wilson and Bruce McNaughton at MIT made a remarkable discovery. They implanted electrodes in the hippocampi of rats and recorded the neural firing patterns as the rats navigated a maze. Then, while the rats slept, they recorded the same brain region. The patterns matched. The sleeping rats were replaying the maze, running the same routes, turning the same corners, reaching the same dead ends, all inside their sleeping brains. The replay was so precise that the researchers could determine which part of the maze the rat was dreaming about. Perhaps you might notice your arms settling even more deeply. Perhaps your elbows and wrists can soften, as if your arms are becoming part of the surface beneath you. Somewhere tonight, a rat in a laboratory may be running a dream maze. A dog may be chasing a dream ball, and you may be walking through a dream landscape that is entirely your own. Dogs twitch their paws and bark softly in REM, perhaps chasing dream squirrels. Anyone who has watched a sleeping dog knows the signs. The paws twitch. The legs move in a running motion. Soft barks and whimpers escape. The tail may wag. The eyes dart beneath closed lids. Research confirms that dogs experience REM, sleep with neural activity patterns similar to those seen in dreaming humans. Dr. Stanley Coren, a professor of psychology at the University of British Columbia and author of several books on canine cognition, has written extensively about the evidence for dreaming in dogs. While we cannot ask a dog what it dreams about, the motor patterns during REM strongly suggest that dogs dream about the activities of their waking lives: running, playing, exploring, and yes, perhaps chasing the occasional squirrel. There is something deeply gentle about the idea that dogs dream. It means that the capacity for inner worlds, for stories told in silence, for adventures lived with closed eyes is not uniquely human. It is a gift shared across species. Octopuses change color while sleeping. Scientists believe they may dream of camouflage. In 2019, researchers in Brazil filmed a sleeping octopus cycling through dramatic color changes, shifting from white to dark brown to textured patterns and back again, all while motionless and apparently asleep. Dr. Siddhartha Ribeiro at the Brain Institute of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte suggested that the octopus might be dreaming, replaying the camouflage patterns it used during the day. If true, this would mean that dreaming exists in an animal whose brain is structured entirely differently from ours, evidence that the impulse to dream may be even more ancient and universal than we imagined. Imagine a sleeping creature on the ocean floor, its skin flickering with colors like a screen playing a silent movie. No audience, no purpose except the brain's quiet rehearsal. Even the ocean dreams. Perhaps you might notice your stomach softening even further. Perhaps your whole midsection can relax, as if you are melting gently into rest. Songbirds rehearse their melodies during sleep, practicing notes they will sing at dawn. In 2000, researchers at the University of Chicago made a discovery that delighted both scientists and poets. By recording the neural activity of zebra finches during sleep, they found that the birds' brains replayed the exact firing patterns associated with singing, even though the birds were silent and still. The sleeping birds were practicing their songs, not out loud, but internally running through the melodies, note by note, refining the sequences they would perform the following morning. Dr. Daniel Margoliash, who led the study, described it as offline rehearsal, the brain using sleep to perfect a skill that it will need when waking arrives. Think of a musician who lies in bed before a concert, silently fingering the notes on an invisible instrument. The performance has not begun, but the preparation is already underway, quiet, precise, and full of care. Somewhere right now, a small bird is asleep on a branch, silently rehearsing the song it will sing at sunrise. Dolphins sleep with one half of their brain at a time, one eye open, one eye dreaming. Dolphins have evolved a remarkable solution to the challenge of sleeping in the ocean, because they must surface regularly to breathe. They cannot afford to lose consciousness entirely. Instead, they practice unihemispheric sleep, resting one half of the brain while the other remains alert. During this half sleep, one eye closes while the other stays open. The sleeping hemisphere may experience something resembling REM-like activity, though researchers at the Dolphin Research Center in Florida are still investigating the full extent of dolphin dreaming. Imagine a lighthouse keeper who never fully sleeps, one eye, always watching the sea, one ear, always listening for ships. The dolphin's brain is that lighthouse keeper, always half awake, always half dreaming, navigating the boundary between rest and vigilance with extraordinary grace. Elephants have the shortest REM sleep of any mammal, just minutes per night. In 2017, researchers at the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa fitted wild elephants with activity monitors and discovered that these enormous animals sleep only about 2 hours per night, and their REM periods last just minutes. Despite this brevity, elephants show remarkable memory, emotional depth, and social intelligence. Their brains may simply be extraordinarily efficient at processing information during their brief windows of REM. Perhaps you might notice your eyelids growing even heavier. Perhaps the effort of keeping them closed has dissolved entirely. and they are simply resting, as naturally as leaves resting on water. An elephant dreams for only minutes. You have the luxury of hours, and your brain will use them well. Cats spend about 200 minutes a day in REM, more than almost any other species. If any animal has mastered the art of dreaming, it is the domestic cat. Cats spend roughly 12 to 16 hours a day sleeping, and a substantial portion of that time, about 200 minutes, is spent in REM sleep. Dr. Michel Jouvet, the French neuroscientist who first identified REM sleep in animals, conducted many of his landmark studies on cats. He observed that during REM, cats exhibited complex motor behaviors when the normal muscle paralysis was experimentally removed, stalking, pouncing, and arching their backs as if acting out dream scenarios. Think of a cat curled on a sunny windowsill, paws twitching gently, whiskers flickering. Behind those closed eyes, an entire world may be unfolding, fields to explore, birds to watch, warm patches of sunlight that exist only in the dream. About 55% of people have experienced at least one lucid dream. A lucid dream is a dream in which the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming while the dream is still happening. This awareness can range from a brief, fleeting recognition to full, sustained consciousness within the dream environment. A meta-analysis published in Consciousness and Cognition found that approximately 55% of people report having had at least one lucid dream in their lifetime, and about 23% experience them regularly, once a month or more. During a lucid dream, the prefrontal cortex, which is normally quiet during REM, partially reactivates, allowing a degree of self-awareness and sometimes even voluntary control over the dream narrative. Imagine you are watching a movie in a dark theater, completely absorbed. Then, gently, you realize you are watching a movie. The images continue. The story unfolds. But now you know it is a story, and that quiet knowing changes everything without changing anything at all. Perhaps you might notice your lower back releasing even more. Perhaps the small curve at the base of your spine can flatten gently, as if your body is finally allowing gravity to do all the work. During a lucid dream, the prefrontal cortex partially reactivates a gentle awareness. In normal REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logical thought and self-awareness, is significantly deactivated. But during lucid dreaming, neuroimaging studies have shown that this region partially wakes up, creating a hybrid state of consciousness that is neither fully asleep nor fully awake. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin used functional MRI to study lucid dreamers and found increased activation in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region associated with metacognition, or thinking about thinking. This creates a fascinating paradox. The dreamer is conscious enough to recognize the dream as a dream, but still deeply enough asleep for the dream to continue. It is a delicate balance, like a candle flame that burns in a draft without going out. Lucid dreamers can sometimes control their dream environment, like directing a soft film. Experienced lucid dreamers report the ability to influence their dream narratives, choosing where to go, what to do, even who to speak with. Some describe it as directing a movie from inside the movie itself. Research by Dr. Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University, who pioneered the scientific study of lucid dreaming in the 1980s, showed that lucid dreamers could perform pre-agreed eye movements during REM sleep, proving that conscious intent could operate within the dream state. But even in lucid dreams, control is rarely total. The dream has its own momentum, its own logic. The lucid dreamer is less a dictator and more a gentle guide suggesting directions, offering preferences, but ultimately letting the dream unfold as it will. Think of a boat on a river. You can steer, you can choose which tributaries to follow, but you cannot change the direction of the current. The river will carry you. Lucid dreaming is learning to hold the rudder lightly while the water does the work. Ancient Tibetans practiced dream yoga, cultivating awareness within the dream state. Long before Western science began studying lucid dreaming in laboratories, Tibetan Buddhist monks were developing sophisticated practices for cultivating awareness during sleep. Dream yoga, known as Mylam in Tibetan, is a practice that dates back over 1,000 years. The goal of dream yoga is not to control dreams, but to recognize the dream state as it occurs, and through that recognition, to gain insight into the nature of consciousness itself. Practitioners train themselves to maintain awareness during the transition from waking to sleeping, carrying a thread of mindful attention into the dream world. Perhaps you might notice your arms growing so heavy that they seem to merge with whatever surface holds them. Perhaps the boundary between your body and the bed is becoming softer, less defined. The monks who practiced dream yoga understood something that modern science is only now confirming. The boundary between waking and dreaming is not a wall. It is a veil, thin, permeable, and full of gentle light. Ancient Egyptians built dream temples where people slept seeking healing visions. In ancient Egypt, dreaming was considered a direct channel to the divine. Temples dedicated to the god Serapis, known as Serapia, were built specifically for the practice of dream incubation. People would travel great distances to sleep within these sacred walls, hoping to receive healing visions or guidance from the gods. Priests would prepare the dreamer with rituals, prayers, and herbal preparations. The dreamer would then sleep on a stone couch within the temple, and upon waking, the priests would help interpret whatever dreams had arrived. The Egyptians believed that the dreaming mind was closer to truth than the waking mind, that sleep removed the barriers between the human and the divine. Imagine a room built for nothing other than dreaming. Stone walls, a single lamp, the scent of incense, and the quiet, ancient belief that something wise visits us when we close our eyes. Humanity has always known that dreams are more than random noise. The Greeks practiced dream incubation, sleeping in sacred spaces to receive guidance. The ancient Greeks inherited and expanded upon the Egyptian tradition of dream incubation. At the Asclepian healing temples dedicated to Asclepios, the god of medicine patients would undergo purification rituals and then sleep within the temple grounds, hoping for a dream that would reveal the cause or cure of their illness. The philosopher Aristotle wrote about dreams as products of the body's internal processes, while his predecessor, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, taught that dreams could provide diagnostic clues about a patient's physical health. Perhaps you might notice your whole body growing quieter. Perhaps the space between your thoughts is widening. Like the space between stars, each thought a little further from the last. The Greeks understood that healing sometimes arrives not through medicine or effort, but through the simple act of lying down, closing your eyes, and trusting that something inside you knows what to do. In Aboriginal Australian tradition, the dream time is the foundation of all creation. The Aboriginal Australian concept of the dream time or the dreaming is one of the most profound cultural frameworks for understanding the relationship between dreams and reality. In this tradition, the dream time is not a historical period that has ended. It is an ongoing, ever-present reality that exists beneath and alongside the waking world. The dreaming is the time when ancestral beings shaped the land, the rivers, the animals, and the people. It continues to unfold in the present moment, accessible through ceremony, song, art, and sleep. This is not mythology in the Western sense. It is a living cosmology, a way of understanding that the world you see when you are awake is only half of what exists. The other half is dreamed. Think of a tapestry viewed from behind. From the front, the image is clear landscapes, figures, stories. But from behind, you can see the threads that hold it together, the hidden structure that gives the visible world its shape. The dream time is the view from behind the tapestry. Across centuries and continents, humans have always understood that dreams carry meaning. From the Serapeum of ancient Egypt to the Asclepieion of Greece, from the dream yoga of Tibet to the dream time of Aboriginal Australia, from the dream journals of Freud to the sleep laboratories of modern neuroscience, humanity has never stopped believing that dreams matter. The methods of interpretation have changed. The language has evolved. But the core intuition remains the same when we close our eyes. Something meaningful happens. Something that deserves attention, respect, and perhaps a little wonder. Your brain has been dreaming since before you were born. It will dream tonight. And those dreams, whether you remember them or not, are part of a tradition as old as consciousness itself. Perhaps you might notice your eyelids completely at rest now. Perhaps the world behind your eyes is growing softer, warmer, more spacious. The third cluster is drawing to a close, and the universal dream world has opened its doors to you. You are not dreaming alone tonight. You never have been. Scientists estimate that you forget about 95% of your dreams within minutes of waking. Not because the dreams were unimportant, but because your brain never intended for you to hold on to them in the first place. During REM sleep, the neurotransmitter norepinephrine, the chemical most responsible for encoding new memories, drops to its lowest levels of the entire day. Your brain essentially turns down the recording device on purpose. Researcher Robert Stickgold at Harvard suggests this forgetting is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Dreams are meant to be experienced, processed, and then released like mist dissolving from a window at dawn. Imagine writing a letter you never intend to send. The act of writing was the healing. The words themselves were never meant to be kept. If your toes feel warm right now, you might let them soften just a little more. Not because you need to, but because they already want to. Perhaps the kindest thing your brain does each night is let you forget. Not to erase, but to free you from carrying what has already been resolved. Research shows that if you do not recall a dream within about 5 minutes of waking, there is roughly a 50% chance it will be gone forever. By 10 minutes, that chance rises to over 90%. This rapid fade is not accidental. The hippocampus, the brain region responsible for transferring short-term memories into long-term storage, operates differently during sleep. It processes emotional content and spatial learning, but it does not prioritize storing the narrative of the dream itself. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker describes this as a kind of emotional first aid. The feelings are metabolized. The storyline is discarded. Think of morning fog lifting from a quiet lake. You know the fog was there. You can still feel the coolness it left behind, but the shapes it made are already gone, and somehow that feels exactly right. Your temples might carry a faint heaviness right now. If they do, you could imagine that weight dissolving the same way dreams dissolve, not with effort, but with the natural passage of a few quiet breaths. Some things are more beautiful precisely because they do not last. Norepinephrine is not the only chemical that shifts during dreaming. Serotonin also drops significantly during REM sleep, creating a neurochemical environment unlike any other state of consciousness. This unique cocktail: low norepinephrine, low serotonin, high acetylcholine allows the brain to make connections it would never make during waking hours. Associations become looser, categories become softer. The rigid boundaries between this and that gently dissolve. Researcher Deirdre Barrett at Harvard has shown that this altered chemistry is precisely what allows dreams to solve problems that logical thinking cannot. The brain needs to let go of its usual rules in order to see new possibilities. Imagine a garden gate that only opens when you stop pushing. The chemicals of sleep are the hand that gently guides yours away from the latch, not to keep you out, but to show you that the gate was never truly locked. Your wrists might feel a quiet pulse right now. That rhythm has been with you since before you were born. It does not need your attention to continue, and yet, noticing it might feel like finding a small, steady comfort you had forgotten was always there. The brain knows that some of its best work happens when it stops trying so hard. Of the roughly 5% of dreams you do remember, most share a common quality. They carried a strong emotional charge. Not necessarily fear or excitement, sometimes just a profound sense of tenderness, or strangeness, or peace. Neuroscience suggests that these remembered dreams activated the amygdala strongly enough to partially override the hippocampal suppression. The emotion was so significant that the brain made an exception to its usual forgetting protocol. William Domhoff's research at the University of California found that people who keep dream journals begin remembering more dreams over time, not because they dream more, but because they train their hippocampus to pay attention to the transition between sleep and waking. Think of a single star that remains visible even as dawn brightens the sky. It is not the brightest star. It is simply the one your eyes happen to find at exactly the right moment. If your whole body feels slightly heavier than it did a few minutes ago, that is a beautiful sign. It means your muscles are beginning to trust this stillness, beginning to believe that nothing needs to happen next. Some dreams stay with us, not because we chose them, but because they chose us. Sleep researchers have found that people who remember too many dreams, a condition sometimes called high dream recall frequency, occasionally report feeling less rested upon waking. Their brains, it seems, did not fully complete the process of letting go. Perrine Ruby at the Lion Neuroscience Research Center discovered that high dream recallers show increased activity in the temporoparietal junction, a brain region involved in attention and awareness. Their brains are, in a sense, too vigilant, keeping one foot in the waking world, even while dreaming. This suggests that the healthiest relationship with dreams may be one of gentle amnesia. The brain heals you in the dark, and then kindly ensures you do not have to carry the evidence of that healing into the morning. Imagine a nurse who changes your bandages while you sleep. You wake feeling better, but you never saw the careful work that made it so. The healing happened precisely because you were not watching. Your toes might curl ever so slightly, as if settling into soft earth. Let them. There is nowhere they need to walk tonight. Forgetting is not the opposite of learning. Sometimes, forgetting is the final step of learning the moment the lesson becomes so deeply part of you that you no longer need to remember it. During REM sleep, your brain sends a remarkable signal down the brainstem. It temporarily paralyzes nearly every voluntary muscle in your body. This phenomenon is called REM atonia. The mechanism is elegant. The subcoeruleus nucleus in the pons releases glycine and GABA, two inhibitory neurotransmitters that prevent motor neurons from firing. Your brain is essentially whispering to your body, "Stay still. I am working." Without this protective paralysis, you would physically act out your dreams. Sleep researchers have documented cases where REM atonia fails a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, and patients punch walls, leap from beds, even run through rooms, all while deeply asleep. Think of a ship dropping anchor in a calm harbor. The ocean still moves beneath it. Waves still rise and fall, but the ship itself remains perfectly, beautifully still. Your temples might release a tension you did not realize they were holding, not because you commanded them to, but because stillness, once it begins, tends to spread on its own. The deepest adventures of your mind happen when your body is at its most peaceful, as if the brain knows that the safest way to fly is to first make sure you cannot fall. During non-REM sleep, your heart rate drops to some of the lowest levels it will reach in any 24-hour period, sometimes as low as 40 to 50 beats per minute in healthy adults. But during REM sleep, something fascinating happens. Your heart rate becomes variable, speeding up and slowing down in patterns that mirror the emotional content of your dreams. Cardiologists call this healthy heart rate variability, and it is actually a sign of a well-regulated autonomic nervous system. Researcher Massimiliano de Zambotti has shown that these nocturnal heart rate fluctuations are not random. They correspond to moments of dreaming intensity, as if your heart is gently rehearsing emotional responses in the safety of sleep. Imagine a drummer playing softly in an empty concert hall. No audience, no performance pressure, just the quiet joy of rhythm practiced for its own sake. Your wrists carry that same quiet rhythm right now, a pulse that has been faithful to you through every dream you have ever had, and every dream you have already forgotten. Even while you sleep, your heart practices feeling so that when you wake, it already knows exactly how to respond to whatever the day may bring. As you drift into deeper stages of sleep, your core body temperature drops by about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. This cooling is not a side effect of sleep, it is one of the mechanisms that make sleep possible. The hypothalamus, the brain's thermostat, actively lowers your set point as night approaches. Blood vessels in your hands and feet dilate, releasing heat from your core to your extremities. You literally warm at the edges and cool at the center. Researcher Ius van Summeren at the Netherlands Institute for Neuroscience has demonstrated that this peripheral warming is one of the strongest predictors of how quickly a person will fall asleep. Warm hands and feet signal to the brain that the body is ready. Think of the earth after sunset. The air cools first, then the stones, then the deep soil, each layer surrendering its warmth in its own time, at its own pace. If your hands or feet feel warm right now, your body is already doing what it does best, preparing the way for rest, long before your thoughts are ready to follow. You do not need to cool yourself down. Your body already knows the temperature of sleep. Approximately 70% of human growth hormone is released during the first few hours of sleep. primarily during the deep, slow-wave stages that precede your earliest dreams. This is not only relevant for children. In adults, growth hormone repairs muscle tissue, strengthens bone density, supports immune function, and helps regulate metabolism. Your body uses the stillness of sleep as a construction site, rebuilding what the day wore down. Endocrinologist Eve Van Korter at the University of Chicago found that even a single night of restricted sleep can reduce growth hormone secretion by as much as 70%. The body does not simply delay the repair work, it cancels it. Imagine a cathedral being built in complete silence. No hammers, no scaffolding, just stone placing itself upon stone, guided by a blueprint that has been perfected over millions of years of evolution. Your whole body is settling now, not because you told it to, but because the night has given it permission. Every cell knows what to do in the dark. Sleep is not the absence of productivity. It is the deepest form of it, the kind that happens without any effort at all. During sleep, your immune system enters what researchers call a state of immunological activation. Levels of certain cytokines, small proteins that coordinate immune responses, increase significantly, particularly during deep non-REM sleep. Sleep researcher Luciana Besedowski at the University of Tübingen has shown that even partial sleep deprivation can reduce the effectiveness of T cells, the white blood cells responsible for identifying and destroying infected cells. A single night of poor sleep can lower T cell adhesion by as much as 70%. This is why you feel sleepy when you are ill. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is prescribing the most powerful medicine it knows: more sleep. Think of a garden being watered in the dark. No one watches. No one applauds. But by morning, every leaf is glistening, refreshed by attention that asked for nothing in return. Your toes might feel a gentle warmth spreading through them now. That warmth is not imaginary. It is your circulatory system doing exactly what it was designed to do, delivering care to the edges of your body. One quiet heartbeat at a time. While you sleep tonight, your immune system will stand watch, not with vigilance or anxiety, but with the calm, steady presence of something that has been protecting you since the day you were born. Melatonin, often called the hormone of darkness, does not actually make you sleep. Instead, it signals to your body that darkness has arrived and that conditions are favorable for sleep to begin. The pineal gland, a tiny structure deep in the center of your brain, begins releasing melatonin approximately 2 hours before your natural bedtime. This gradual rise is triggered by the absence of blue light reaching specialized cells in your retina called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Researcher Charles Czeisler at Harvard Medical School has shown that melatonin functions less like a switch and more like a tide rising slowly, reaching its peak in the middle of the night and receding gradually before dawn. Imagine the sky at dusk. It does not snap from blue to black. Instead, colors shift through violet, through rose, through deepening indigo, each shade a gentle invitation rather than a command. Your temples might soften as you imagine that slow, purple gradient, not because you decided they should, but because the body responds to gentleness the way the ocean responds to the moon, without resistance, without effort. Melatonin does not force sleep upon you. It simply opens the door and steps aside. The default mode network, a constellation of brain regions that activates when you are not focused on any external task, becomes highly active during REM sleep. This is the same network that lights up when you daydream, reminisce, or imagine the future. Neuroscientist Randy Buckner at Harvard has mapped this network extensively. It includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the angular gyrus regions involved in self-reflection, memory consolidation, and what scientists sometimes call mental time travel. During dreaming, the default mode network operates without interference from the prefrontal cortex's executive functions. There is no inner critic, no self-consciousness, no judgment, just the mind wandering freely through its own vast landscape. Think of a river that has been flowing through a city all day, channeled by bridges and walls and concrete banks. At night, the city sleeps. The walls dissolve, and the river spills quietly into the meadows it remembers from before the city was built. Your wrists carry a pulse that connects your waking mind to your dreaming mind. The same blood, the same rhythm. The only difference is that in dreams, the rhythm is finally free to go wherever it wants. The default mode of your brain is not emptiness. It is imagination, the gentlest, most natural thing your mind knows how to do. As you drift from wakefulness into sleep, you may experience brief, vivid images that seem to appear from nowhere. These are called hypnagogic hallucinations, and they are among the most common and least understood phenomena in sleep science. Researcher Tor Nielsen at the University of Montreal has documented that approximately 70% of people experience hypnagogic imagery on a regular basis. These images are typically short, lasting only a few seconds, and often feature faces, geometric patterns, or brief scenes that feel simultaneously familiar and strange. The neurological explanation is that your visual cortex remains partially active even as other brain regions begin transitioning into sleep. You are seeing the brain's screen test fragments of imagery projected without narrative or context, like a projector warming up in an empty theater. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest at twilight. The trees are half visible. The path ahead is unclear, but you feel no fear, only the quiet curiosity of someone who knows the forest is friendly. If you see colors or shapes forming behind your closed eyelids, you do not need to chase them or understand them. They are simply your brain saying, "We are almost there." The dreams are being prepared. Hypnagogic images are the doorway's decorations, proof that something beautiful is being built on the other side. Some people hear sounds as they fall asleep, snippets of conversation, a name being called, a chord of music that vanishes the moment you try to listen more closely. These hypnagogic auditory experiences are remarkably common and entirely normal. Neuroimaging studies by Giulio Tononi's team at the University of Wisconsin have shown that auditory cortex activity persists well into the transition from wakefulness to sleep. Your brain continues processing sound even as consciousness begins to narrow, creating phantom audio from the residual firing of neurons that are not yet fully asleep. Occasionally, these sounds are accompanied by the sensation of someone speaking your name. Researcher Andreas Mavromatis documented that this particular experience occurs in approximately 15 to 20% of the population and appears related to the brain's heightened sensitivity to socially relevant stimuli. Think of the last sounds you hear in a house as it settles for the night. A creak, a whisper of wind, the tick of something cooling. These sounds are not alarming. They are the house breathing. Your whole body might be settling now, the way a house settles, not collapsing, not breaking, just finding the position it will hold until morning, the shape of deep, unhurried rest. The voices at the threshold are not calling you to attention. They are calling you inward, to a place where sounds become colors and words become dreams. Nearly 70% of people have experienced a hypnic jerk, that sudden sensation of falling or tripping that jolts you awake just as sleep begins. Despite how startling it feels, it is one of the most harmless phenomena in all of sleep medicine. The leading theory, proposed by researcher Ian Oswald, suggests that hypnic jerks occur when the brain misinterprets the rapid muscle relaxation of sleep onset as actual falling. The motor cortex fires a brief protective response, a last-second attempt to catch you before you hit the ground. But there is no ground. There is only the soft transition from wakefulness to sleep, a transition so complete that your brain briefly mistakes relaxation for danger. Imagine a cat startling at its own shadow, then immediately returning to its nap as if nothing happened. No embarrassment, no residual fear, just a momentary twitch followed by deeper, more committed rest. If you have ever felt that gentle jolt, your brain was simply checking one last time, making absolutely sure that you are safe enough to let go completely. Your toes know. Your temples know. Your wrists know. Every part of you has already voted. And the answer is unanimous. You are safe. You can fall not down, but inward, into the softest place your brain has ever built. The counterpart to hypnagogic imagery is hypnopompic imagery, the vivid, often surreal images that sometimes persist for a few seconds after waking. If you have ever opened your eyes and briefly seen something that was not there, you have experienced this phenomenon. Sleep researcher Kazuhiko Fukuda found that hypnopompic hallucinations are most common during awakenings from REM sleep, when the brain's visual imagination system is still highly active. For a few heartbeats, the dreaming brain and the waking brain overlap, and reality wears a thin costume of dream. Unlike hypnagogic imagery, which tends to be abstract and geometric, hypnopompic imagery is often more narrative fragments of the dream you were just having, projected briefly onto the ceiling or the wall like the last frame of a film that has already ended. Think of the moment after a concert ends. The music has stopped, but for a few seconds, the hall still hums with its ghost, not quite sound, not quite silence, but something in between. Your temples might feel incredibly light now, as if the weight they carried at the start of this journey has been transferred somewhere, perhaps into the pillow, perhaps into the earth, perhaps into the dreams that are already forming just beyond the edge of your awareness. Hypnopompic visions are your brain's way of saying, "That was a good dream. Here, have one last glimpse before it goes." When you close your eyes and press gently on your eyelids, you may see swirls of color and light called phosphenes. But you can also see them without any pressure at all, simply by closing your eyes in a dark room and waiting. These Eigengrau patterns, from the German word meaning intrinsic gray, are caused by the spontaneous firing of cells in your retina and visual cortex. Even in complete darkness, your visual system is never truly off. It hums quietly, generating soft patterns from its own neural static. Researcher Dominic Efeficha at King's College London has shown that as the brain transitions towards sleep, these spontaneous visual patterns become increasingly organized, shifting from random noise to structured forms that begin to resemble the early architecture of dreams. Imagine watching clouds form in fast motion. First, nothing, then wisps, then shapes, then entire landscapes painted on a canvas of closed eyelid darkness. Your wrists carry a pulse so steady that you might forget it is there. And perhaps that is the point. The things that sustain you most reliably are often the things you notice least. The lights behind your eyelids are not random. They are the first brushstrokes of tonight's dreams, painted by a brain that never stops creating, even when every other part of you has gone perfectly still. Your brain begins preparing for sleep hours before you actually close your eyes. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons in the hypothalamus, tracks the fading of daylight and initiates a cascade of physiological changes that gradually shift your body from alert mode to rest mode. Body temperature begins to drop. Melatonin begins to rise. Cortisol, the stress hormone, begins its nightly decline. Digestion slows. Heart rate decreases. Blood pressure lowers. Each of these changes is orchestrated by the same internal clock that has kept time for every human who has ever lived. Chronobiologist Till Roneberg has documented that this preparation phase, called the sleep gate, typically lasts about 2 hours. During this window, the body is not yet asleep, but it is no longer fully committed to being awake. Think of a theater dimming its lights before the show begins. The audience quiets. The curtains have not opened yet, but everyone can feel that something is about to happen, something that requires darkness to be seen. If you feel that your body has been quietly preparing for this moment, you are right. It started long before you decided to rest. Your biology voted for sleep before your mind even considered it. You are not forcing yourself to sleep. You are arriving at a place your body has been preparing for hours. In 2012, neuroscientist Maiken Nedergaard at the University of Rochester discovered something extraordinary during sleep. The brain activates a waste clearance system called the glymphatic system that is nearly 10 times more active than during waking hours. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through channels between brain cells, flushing out metabolic waste products including beta amyloid, a protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. The spaces between neurons actually expand during sleep, increasing by as much as 60%, creating wider channels for this cleaning fluid to flow. This discovery was so significant that it fundamentally changed how neuroscientists understand the purpose of sleep. Sleep is not merely rest, it is active maintenance. Your brain is literally washing itself. Imagine rain falling on a dusty city at 3 in the morning. No one is watching. No one ordered the rain. But by dawn, every surface gleams, cleaned by water that fell without any human instruction. Your whole body might feel like it is being gently rinsed right now. Not with water, but with something quieter, the slow, rhythmic pulse of a system that knows exactly how to care for you while you are not paying attention. Every night, your brain cleans house, and the only admission ticket is sleep. From the moment you wake each morning, a molecule called adenosine begins accumulating in your brain, hour by hour. It builds binding to receptors that gradually increase your desire for sleep. Scientists call this process sleep pressure, and by evening, it becomes one of the most powerful biological drives in the human body. Adenosine is a byproduct of cellular energy consumption. The more your brain works during the day, the more adenosine it produces. Caffeine works by temporarily blocking adenosine receptors, not eliminating the adenosine, but masking it, like putting earplugs in while an alarm continues to ring. Sleep researcher Alexander Borbély first described this process as the homeostatic sleep drive in 1982. He showed that sleep pressure and the circadian clock work together like two hands on a steering wheel, both guiding you toward the same destination: rest. Think of snow accumulating on a branch. Each flake is weightless, but together, over hours, they create a gentle, irresistible downward pull. The branch does not break, it simply bends, lower and lower, until it touches the ground. Your eyelids might carry that same kind of weight right now. Not heaviness from fatigue, but heaviness from fullness, a day's worth of living, thinking, and feeling, settling softly into the body's request for rest. Sleep pressure is not your enemy. It is your body's way of saying, you have done enough. You can stop now. When sleep finally arrives and adenosine is cleared from the brain, it does not simply vanish. The process of clearing adenosine is itself restorative, triggering a cascade of repair mechanisms that could not activate while the molecule was still present. Neuroscientist Robert Greene at the University of Texas has shown that the clearance of adenosine during sleep is closely linked to the restoration of synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and learn new things. Without this nightly reset, the synapses become saturated, and new learning becomes progressively harder. This means that the tiredness you feel at the end of a long day is not a punishment for working too hard. It is a signal that your brain has been building all day long and now needs time to consolidate what it has built. Imagine a sculptor who works in clay all day. By evening, the table is covered with dust, tools are scattered, and the clay has dried on every surface. The night comes not to judge the mess, but to clean it, organize it, and prepare the studio for tomorrow's creation. Your toes, your temples, your wrists, every part of you that has been gently attending to these words, they are all part of the studio. And the night is coming to prepare them for whatever beautiful thing you will create tomorrow. Adenosine is not the weight that drags you down. It is the invitation that draws you in. As the night progresses, the architecture of your sleep shifts. Early in the night, your brain prioritizes deep, slow-wave sleep, the most physically restorative stage. But as the hours pass, each successive cycle contains less deep sleep and more REM sleep. By the final cycles of the night, typically in the hours just before dawn, REM periods can last 45 minutes to an hour. These late-night REM periods produce the longest, most vivid, most emotionally complex dreams of the entire night. Sleep researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA explains this progression as a reflection of priorities. The body is repaired first, then the mind. Physical restoration precedes emotional restoration, as if the brain knows that the foundation must be solid before the paintings can be hung on the walls. Think of a house being built in the dark. First, the foundation is poured solid, is silent, essential. Then the walls rise. Then the windows are set in place. And finally, in the last hours before dawn, the curtains are hung, the flowers are placed on the table, and the lights are arranged to cast the softest possible glow. Your whole body is settling into this architecture right now. The foundation has been laid. The walls are rising. And somewhere ahead of you, in the later hours of tonight, the most beautiful rooms are still being prepared. Sleep does not begin with dreams. It begins with the quiet, unglamorous work of building a place where dreams can safely happen. In the final third of a full night's sleep, REM sleep dominates, occupying as much as 50 to 60% of each 90-minute cycle. This is when the brain does its most sophisticated, emotional, and creative processing. Neuroscientist Penny Lewis at Cardiff University has proposed that the alternation between non-REM and REM sleep serves a specific computational purpose. Non-REM sleep replays and strengthens individual memories. REM sleep then takes those strengthened memories and integrates them, finding connections between experiences that seemed unrelated during the day. This is why you sometimes wake with a solution to a problem you could not solve the night before. Your brain was not idle. It was running the most creative algorithm it possesses, one that only works in the strange. Associative logic of dreams. Imagine a librarian who spends the first half of the night carefully shelving books in their proper places. Then, in the second half, the same librarian begins pulling books from different shelves and reading passages aloud, discovering, with delight, that a poem about the ocean and a manual about breathing and a children's story about clouds are all, somehow, about the same thing. Your temples have softened, your wrists are quiet, your toes have settled, and somewhere inside you, a librarian is just beginning the most interesting part of the night's work. The dreams that matter most are the ones you have not had yet. Every night, your brain constructs entire worlds from nothing. It renders landscapes, populates them with characters, writes dialogue, composes emotional scores, and simulates physics, all without any external input whatsoever. No computer on Earth can do what your dreaming brain does casually. Every single night, the most advanced artificial intelligence systems require enormous amounts of data and energy to generate even a few seconds of coherent visual narrative. Your brain does it for hours, using less energy than a nightlight. Neuroscientist Giulio Tononi has described the dreaming brain as the most creative system in the known universe. Not because it follows rules, but because it breaks them. Gently, in ways that reveal truths the waking mind could never access. Think of a child building sandcastles on an infinite beach. No blueprint, no deadline, no audience. Just the pure joy of creating something that exists for no reason other than the pleasure of its own existence. Your whole body has been listening to these words, not because it had to, but because somewhere deep within the architecture of your neurons, there is a part of you that recognizes this story as its own. You are not just a person who dreams. You are a universe that builds other universes quietly, faithfully, every single night. And so we arrive at the simplest, most extraordinary fact of all tonight. You will dream again. Your brain will lower its chemicals. Your body will cool itself by 1 or 2 degrees. Your muscles will go still. Your heart will find its slowest, steadiest rhythm. And then, without any effort, without any instruction, without any conscious decision, your mind will begin to build. It will build worlds you have never seen. It will replay moments you thought you had forgotten. It will rehearse emotions you did not know you needed to feel. It will solve problems you did not know you had. And then, with the gentleness of fog lifting from a morning lake, it will let everything dissolve so that you can wake and begin again. You do not need to understand this process. You do not need to control it. You do not even need to remember it. Your only task, if it can even be called a task, is to close your eyes and allow the most ancient, most sophisticated, most tender system in your body to do what it has done every night since the day you were born. Your toes are warm. Your temples are soft. Your wrists carry a pulse that will follow you into the dark and bring you safely back by morning. You have heard 100 facts about dreaming, but the most important fact is the one that is about to happen. Tonight, your brain will build you a world, and you do not need to do a single thing to deserve it. Your brain is the gentlest architect you will ever know. Every night, it draws blueprints in the dark, not for buildings that will stand for centuries, but for experiences that will dissolve by morning. It constructs entire cathedrals of emotion, paints galaxies across the ceiling of your skull, fills rooms with voices and music and light, and then, with no regret at all, lets it all wash away. Because the building was never the point. The building was the healing. You do not need to remember anything from tonight. Not the facts, not the metaphors, not the science, not even these words. If they helped, they helped. If they drifted past you like clouds, that is exactly what they were meant to do. You do not need to carry anything forward. You do not need to learn anything new. You do not need to become anything different by morning. You are already exactly the person your dreaming brain was designed to care for. Let your whole body settle now. Not with effort, not with intention. Just the way a leaf settles on still water, finding its place not through force, but through the simple, patient physics of letting go. Your toes, your ankles, your knees, your hips, your belly, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your wrists, your fingers, your neck, your jaw, your temples, your forehead, your eyelids. Each one has already voted, and the answer is unanimous. You are ready. May your dreams be soft tonight. May your brain build you worlds so gentle that your body forgets it is sleeping. May the architectures of your imagination be warm and strange and kind. May you travel to places that dissolve by morning, and may the dissolving itself feel like a gift. May you sleep the way the ocean sleeps, not motionless, but moving in rhythms so ancient that they feel like stillness. May you wake without remembering, and feel, somehow, that you have been cared for. Good night.